What up, guys? Welcome to a brand new podcast, and today we're going to be talking about handheld consoles and video game remasters. I am joined here with no one else but Ryan.
Hello.
The fuck? You always, you always sound like that. He's like, "Hello."
Yeah, because what else am I supposed to say? Well, we're both always the ones doing the podcast. No one else ever comes up.
I know, but you always like say it the same way. Hello. You don't say, "Hey, guys."
You always say the intro the same way. What up, guys? Welcome to a brand new podcast.
Because you gotta be excited, all right?
It's so funny though. All right, so let's get into it. First up, we're gonna be talking about, since our last podcast we went through gaming consoles, like the main consoles. We did touch on handheld consoles, and I wanted to kind of run down through those as well. So we're gonna start off with those. And the first handheld console that I want to talk about, that I know you've played, but I have not played, is the original Game Boy.
Yes, best thing ever.
Best handheld ever, in your opinion, or are you just saying that?
No, it's not the best ever, but it was good at the time. Well,
Obviously.
wasn't it the only one at the time?
No, there were others, but obviously that was the most popular one because it was done by Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Nintendo Shit Cube. I'm kidding. I like the GameCube.
Have you?
So,
Go ahead.
oh well, you go ahead. You sound like you had a question.
Yeah, have you ever played any ROMs for the Game Boy?
No, I've never touched or played any games on a Game Boy ever. I know one of my friends had a Game Boy Color, but I only played one game on it. I didn't even know what it was. So yeah, I've never actually had a Game Boy. What games did you play on it?
I played. You probably never heard of this game, Bonkers or whatever it's called.
Bonkers?
Yeah, Bonkers. He had like a big head. It was kind of like Mario, but it was like Mario on like acid. That's what it was. It was fun. Bonkers Adventures. His big ass head, just like he has this move where you jump up in the air and he headbutts the opponent, like the enemy, and just goes slamming down to the ground.
Oh no. Okay, I looked this up. It's not called Bonkers. It's called Bonk's Adventure.
Yeah, Bonks. That motherfucker.
Oh my fucking god! I've seen this game. This is weird, dude.
That game was the best game ever.
This game was weird as hell. I've seen someone play this.
I played that game religiously. All right.
Why? Was that your first Game Boy game?
No, no, it wasn't. But I just found it fun. That's why.
That was weird, man. I've seen gameplay of this. It's definitely Japanese. I'm gonna put it like that. It's definitely Japanese.
But that dude. Oh no, my first Wait, was it this or no? Oh no, never mind. That's Game Boy Color. Never mind.
What was the first game that you had for the Game Boy? Was it your first handheld that you ever had?
Yes, I believe it was actually. Because I never heard of any other handhelds at the time, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most popular one. What other games did you have for it besides weird ass Bonk over here?
I had Pokemon Blue. If I think it was Blue, yeah. Blue and what the fuck? Blue. Pokemon Blue and Mario.
What Mario game was on the Game Boy? Was it just Super Mario?
I think it was just Super Mario or just Mario in general.
Just like a straight port of the fucking NES version of the original Mario?
I don't think so. Wait, it was Super Mario Land. There we go, Super Mario Land.
Oh no, I have heard about that game. Okay, yeah, that's an entirely separate game in itself.
Yeah, I can't remember jack shit about it.
So is that all you had for the Game Boy? Was just those few games?
I probably had more, but I can't remember.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on from the Game Boy to the Game Boy Color, and you tell me if there's any difference in those two besides the obvious difference, which is the color.
Definitely yes. I played that shit more than the actual Game Boy, the original. There was this one game called Monster Rancher. Ugh, mwah, perfect game.
Was there was it like did it have exclusive games for like the Game Boy Color, or did they both work on the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color?
What, the games? If the Game Boy Color games worked on the regular Game Boy?
Yeah, were there like any exclusives to only Game Boy Color? Because they people would obviously design it for color, right? They'd put color in the game, and then they'd have to, if they put it on the Game Boy original, you wouldn't have any color.
I think it was the games were like specially made just for the Game Boy Color because at the time I don't think the Game Boy could have support color, and if they and we call it, and if you put a Game Boy Color game into a Game Boy, I don't think it will work. I don't know. I never tried it.
But Game Boy games did work on the Game Boy Color, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, totally. So backwards compatible.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's always good to know. What games did you have for the Game Boy Color then that you didn't have for your Game Boy?
Well, I only played one game on the Game Boy Color, which was Monster Rancher. It's like a Pokemon type game.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's the only game you had, and you played it more than the Game Boy.
Yeah.
Even though you only had one game.
Yeah, because that game was fun. It got me pissed, but it was. I think it was the music the game had. It was fantastic. Oh my god.
That's always interesting to hear. That game was so fun. It pissed me off so much.
Yeah. There's a lot of games that piss you, like Dark Souls. That game gets me mad, but it's still good.
Unfortunately, it pisses me off so fucking much, but it's some part of me still wants to go back to that, and I have to force myself not to because I know I'm just gonna end up breaking something.
Yeah, but that's the only Game Boy Color game that I had. I don't think I had any other ones.
Alright, interesting. So moving on from the Game Boy Color, we now have the Game Boy Advance. Now this was a step up. A big step up for the Game Boy. Did you ever have a Game Boy Advance?
Is the Game Boy Advance the same as the Game Boy SP?
A smaller folding version released as the Game Boy SP. Yes, it is the same.
Yeah, well, I had a red Game Boy SP. I remember that shit. It broke, sadly.
Why? How?
Apparently, it got wet. I don't know how it got wet, and it never turned on ever. So, tragic story. Tragic.
That sucks. What games did you have for it?
Well, games I actually owned. I had Pokemon for sure. Have Super Mario. This Bruce Lee game, pretty fun. I had this movie game called Around the World in 80 Days or some shit. Is that what it's called? Around the World in 80 Days.
I don't know. I've never played it.
No, like the movie with Jackie Chan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had that game, and then I had some others I can't remember the name of. Those are the ones that's popping out for me. Yeah, that's.
Would you say that was a good handheld? Like would you go back and play that ever?
Yeah, I would I still play games on ROMs of the Game Boy Advance because those games were fun. Like they had great platformers back then.
Yeah, they did really good platformers back then. Before, I wouldn't say that genre's dead, but you don't see a lot of them anymore.
Yeah.
When they do come out, they're either really shit or they're decent.
Yeah, there's a lot of good games. Oh yeah, there we go. Kirby. There we go. That's a big one that I played. I hated that little pink fucker. Kirby. Oh. Yeah. I remember sucking up this enemy. I didn't even know what the fuck was going on. I was like, what the hell? He was like suck that shit up and just
Oh my god.
I was like, what the hell is up with this bubblegum motherfucker? Oh my god. Yeah, that game
So
was.
that was your first Kirby game? You never heard of Kirby before that?
Yeah, I never heard of Kirby before that. That was my first Kirby
Okay.
game.
I like Kirby. They got some good games.
He's the worst character in Smash Bros.
We'll talk about that later. Alright, moving on from the Game Boy Advance. I want to touch on a console that I've heard of and you might have heard of, but I know that we both have probably never played it. It's called the N-Gage.
The N-Gage. What is that?
You never heard of it? Okay.
The N-Gage. Let me look at a picture.
Do you know Nokia?
Yeah.
Do you know the company Nokia, the indestructible phones?
Yeah, I have one of those.
They made a handheld console called the N-Gage.
Oh my god. Let me see. I'm gonna look at
It was a combination of a game console and a phone.
Oh! Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I saw YouTube videos of these.
Oh, now yeah, you see it. You looked at a picture of it.
Yeah. That's one of the worst handhelds ever.
That's a weird piece of history right there.
Yeah, the Nokia handheld console was a bad piece of history. The games that came out for it was just awful. I saw videos on it on YouTube. None of the games ran well. It was awful.
Well, I mean, you know that they were trying to capitalize on the handheld gaming market at the time because the Game Boy Advance itself alone sold 80 million units, and Nokia went, okay, we can do that. Sure, everyone will like, what's the issue with having a phone that's also a handheld console? It's genius, and then it sold terribly.
It was just an awful handheld thing. Wait, it was a phone too?
Yeah, that's what it says. It was a combination of game console and phone. So they were still trying to make it a phone because they were a phone company, but they just made it into a game console or a handheld game console. At least they tried to and failed miserably.
Good thing it's that nothing good came from that. That's a lie. The only good thing that came from that is probably the idea of playing games on your phone, because now you could play all these good games on your smartphone.
Quote unquote good.
There's actually a lot of good games on
Most of them are shit.
That's not true.
Most of them are pretty terrible, but
you have some iconic games like Balls.
oh yeah, that was really iconic, memorable for about 10 minutes.
And then what was the big? There's always a trendy game every year on.
Remember Trivia Crack? Trivia Crack was the trend.
I've never heard of that in my life. That was a trend?
No, you must have been somewhere else at the time, but the Trivia Crack in the beginnings of my high school years was the shit. Every time there was any free time in high school, people would bring out their phone and they'd be playing Trivia Crack. It's basically Trivial Pursuit. If you've ever heard that, it asks you a bunch of questions with different categories, and you get answers, or you get a bunch of answers, and you have to pick the right one, and you can compete against different people and get points and stuff. So, yeah.
No, I never heard of that.
Yeah, that was. I guess you made a good point. The N-Gage was sort of the start of phone games almost. It just increasingly got better, quote unquote, from there. Like the technology started getting better and whatnot. So yeah, like I said, interesting little piece of history here. Whether it turned out to be good or bad, that's for you to decide. I personally think it was for the worst.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Alright, moving on to the most successful handheld ever. We have the Nintendo DS.
Oh, did you own one?
Oh yeah. I didn't have an original though. I didn't have the original DS. I didn't get my DS until 2009 or 2010. And it was a Nintendo DSi XL. And it came with Mario Kart DS.
I had the original DS. I had the blue one with the blue top, and the rest of it is black. I had a lot of weird but good games for it. I had Mario Kart, Mario 64, and then I had some Need for Speed games. I had Alvin and the Chipmunks for that game, for the DS.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was fun. I played that game more than Mario Kart, which is sad. And then
That's really sad.
and then I had another movie game, Spiderwick Chronicles or something like that.
Oh dear Lord.
And then obviously, of course, I had a Pokemon game for it. It was Pokemon Silver, I believe.
What a surprise.
That's the only Pokemon game I actually completed too. So, yeah, I think that was the. Oh wait, and one more, which was Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. I think that's the name of it.
Yeah, I heard of that. I've heard of that game. Was it on the original DS? I thought that was on the 3DS.
No, that was on the original DS.
Okay.
They probably remade it. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Because that game was colorful and it was so fun. The art style was gorgeous for the DS, and it just was a fun game.
Let's see. Games that I had for my DS. It came with Mario Kart DS and some brain trivia game. I don't remember what it was called, but it was sort of just like those games where it's like keep up your brain or keep your brain active with stuff, like you learn new things or something.
Yeah.
It was one of those games. That had new Super Mario Brothers, the very first new Super Mario Brothers. I thought that was pretty fun. Mario Party DS had that game, which was actually surprisingly good, considering it was a handheld version of Mario Party, but I think it was alright. I'm sure I had some other games, but I can't think of them at the time, or I got rid of them.
Didn't the DSi had its own store, like the iStore or some shit like that?
Yeah, they had it's like the same thing that we had, or the DS came first. No, wait, no, it was the other way around. Yeah, the Wii had the Wii Store with all of their downloadable games, and then the DSi came out and said, we have our own store as well. I think I bought some games off of that, like maybe one or two.
No,
with the points.
I remember one of my friends, he had the R4 cartridge where you could put in the SD card and play ROMs off of it. I remember him having that.
Yeah.
He had a lot of DS games. He just downloaded them and just put them on the SD card, and he could just load them up. I think that was honestly a bad idea. Wait, Nintendo didn't make it, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, because why would they do that? But yeah, I remember wanting one so bad. I never got one, But you know what? I didn't really care because a few years later, I was never playing with my DS ever again. So
So interesting thing about the original DS, the very first one that came out, it was backwards compatible with Game Boy Advance games.
yeah, it had the little cartridge slot at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Did you ever play any Game Boy Advance games on your DS?
Yeah, I played one, and it was Pokemon, obviously. Yeah, it was Pokemon Ruby, and I didn't play it as much, but it looked great. That's it. After that, I never played it again. I never touched it. I have it in my closet, just in a box.
Your Game Boy Advance.
Oh no, that shit broke a long time ago.
Oh, you mean your DS, the original DS?
Oh no, that broke too.
Okay.
I broke that.
No, what the fuck?
I have a picture. I think it's still on my Twitter where I broke it in half. Oh, don't ask why. How I ripped it apart. Duh.
Why?
It was already broken, so there was no use.
Oh, dude, this is broken. Let me just tear this thing in half.
Yeah. So I have a bunch of DS games in my closet. And then I just have that one Game Boy Advance game just right there, the red cartridge of Pokemon Ruby. Classic.
Oh yeah, so classic.
It
So
is.
classic. I don't remember it.
The Pokemon. That's one thing I actually liked about the Pokemon series and all that. Like back then the cartridges were they weren't gray. They were like red and transparent, which was cool. So that's why I still cherish that piece of thing.
Piece of
Plastic. Even though it's
Oh
in my
my God.
closet, just somewhere.
You like it so much, you just threw it away.
I didn't throw it away. It's just packed away.
I'm sure. You don't even know where it is.
It's somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere over the fucking rainbow. Moving on to the next handheld, which I believe is the superior handheld to the DS. We have the PSP, which I think, I wouldn't say it's the best. Not the best handheld.
It was
It
the
might
best.
be second. Oh, absolutely. When it came out, it was the best.
Well, it was the best at
And
the
it makes
time.
me- oh yeah, it makes me even more mad though because the Nintendo DS sold 154 million units, and the PSP only sold 80 million.
Yeah. So, really? I could have swore it sold
Yeah.
more.
No, the PSP only sold 80 million, and the DS almost doubled that.
That makes no sense because a lot of people said the PSP were like it was way better than the DS.
It doesn't matter. You got Mario on the DS. That's all you need.
True.
You got Nintendo properties on a console. It's gonna sell like hotcakes. The PSP was way better though in terms of games and graphics and technology and stuff. Yeah, I thought it was way better.
It was. Had a fuck ton of games for that. Bunch of wrestling games, God of War, some other ones that I can't even think of the name right now because they're in my closet somewhere. But yeah, I had a lot of games for that. I modded the shit out of my PSP to the point where
Really?
the point where I broke it. I
You
had
break every fucking handheld you own. Can you?
like I had a custom firmware on it, so I was hacking the shit out of it, and then I end up putting on the wrong custom firmware and I broke it, and then I gave it to a friend. He set it on fire. You know, the usual normal stuff. But
Oh yeah, normal.
Yeah, I remember. That the PSP was one of. That's the thing I always asked for. Like, I didn't really ask for anything else. Just the PSP. I didn't care for a DS. Just a PSP. I had.
For Christmas or whatever, you always asked for a PSP.
Yeah, I had two. In total, two PSPs. I had a blue one, and then I broke that one because I stepped on it. And I had a black one, which I got for Christmas, and that's the one that I modded and broke. And then after that, I never got another one. Obviously, you know why.
Smart decision.
That's all I like. That's what I do, man. I just like to play around and hack shit.
And you wonder why everything you own breaks.
That's a lie. The stuff I have now don't break that I know of.
That you know of. Because you haven't fucked with it yet.
Yet. I was thinking about.
You will.
I was thinking about putting a custom firmware on my PS3, and then I was like, nope, I don't want to get banned.
Yeah, you're gonna get banned as soon as you do that. Don't do that. Alright. Anyway, PSP. I definitely had more games. I have more games for my PSP than I ever did for my DS. I think I only have 3 or 4 games for my DS, and I have at least 15 games for my PSP. So that just shows how much better that was, at least to me.
What
Some of the
game?
games that I had for it. Were you gonna ask what games I had for it?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
Some of the games that I can think of right now, we did talk about this last podcast. I just mentioned Burnout Legends. It's an incredibly fun racing game. Little Big Planet, I do have that. Ratchet and Clank, and then there was a spin-off game, like it was just with Clank himself, Agent Clank, something like that. I do have a Need for Speed game. I do have God of War. Anything else I could think of? Not at the moment, but I definitely had a lot more fun playing the PSP than I really ever did playing my DS, so. Alright, moving on from the PSP, we have Nintendo's better handheld console, in my opinion, which is the Nintendo 3DS. Now, Neo, I know that you have spoken about this. You said that you think the 3D is gimmicky and that you don't like it as much. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
The 3D is shit. It was good at the time, but most people who have the 3DS, they don't really use the 3D, and I heard that it hurts your eyes too. The only good thing about the 3D on the 3DS was you know the little cards that you have with the characters.
Oh yeah.
We could put them down, and then and they walk around. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the card thing where it's like virtual or whatever.
Yeah, that was the only good thing about the 3D. Other than that, no.
Just no.
Just no. Do you use the 3D on a daily basis or for any of your games?
Well, I don't use the 3D daily anyway, but when I do use the 3DS, I do turn on the 3D. I feel like I'm one of the only people who actually enjoys the 3D. Because it doesn't hurt me. It is true that you have to put yourself in a specific position, your head and your eyes and whatnot, and you have to hold the handheld still while you play the game and look directly in a certain spot, but once you do that, everything sort of works. I don't know. If you get it to work right, the games do look cool when they're in 3D, because most of the games were designed to, have that sort of 3D aspect to them. Like some of the parts were designed so that things would pop out at you or would look, you know, dimensional. That in some cases, obviously, it was shit. It didn't work as well as others, but in certain cases, I think it works pretty well.
And didn't when you buy the 3DS, it doesn't come with a charger, right?
That's the new 3DS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the new 3DS. They just said no, no charger for you.
Fuck Nintendo and their 3D. The 2DS is where it's at.
I would say speaking of that, I would, if I didn't already have 3DS, I would have gone out and either bought a 2DS when it came out, or I'd wait, like you're doing right now, waiting for the Nintendo 2DS XL, which I'm so happy they've come out with, or that they're coming out with that, because that's what I wanted them to do. I liked the idea of a 2DS, but it fucking looked terrible. It wasn't portable at all. But now they finally said, okay, we're just gonna make the 3DS, how that looks, exactly like that, and just take out 3D. And it's XL, which is the best way to play any DS, is having it extra large, so you can actually see the fucking games.
Yeah, and I think it has the new hardware as the new 3DS, because I know there's some games that you need the new 3DS in order to play.
I fucking hate that. I really do. That some games, like the shop, like on their Nintendo shop or whatever, some games are exclusive to the new Nintendo 3DS. It's like, why?
Because it has the little gray analog sticky thingy.
Dude, so fucking what?
And the new 3DS has new hardware. That's why.
It's new hardware. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm ragging on it, but
it's like the Xbox.
I still think it's good.
It's like the Xbox. Think about it. It's not a whole new console, but it's like, think about it. It's upgraded software and hardware.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not showing it because all of the fucking games that are exclusive to the new 3DS on the shop, at least, are like SNES games and NES games, like shit that was on the consoles back then that should be playable on the 3DS, but are only exclusive to the new 3DS, which I think is bullshit.
Yeah, I only think there was just one game that was that I know of that was exclusive just for the new 3DS, and it was Xenoblade or some shit like that. I think it was Xenoblade.
Yeah, I think that's the only game that has a physical release that is exclusive to the new 3DS, just because it has that stupid little gray stick, fucking clit, whatever it is, I don't know.
Yeah, and it has, I'm putting this in parentheses. No, not what the fuck, parentheses? Oh my god, quotations, Jesus Christ. Better graphics.
Yeah, better, quote unquote.
But other than that, it's like, no.
I don't think so. Yeah, the second analog stick is almost sort of really necessary to play games like that, you know, where you're controlling the camera and the player, looking around, trying to figure out where you're going and stuff. It is sort of necessary, you know, to playing those games. And that's where I'm going to transition now from the 3DS to the PlayStation Vita, which is the next handheld that we're going to be talking about, which had dual analog sticks. I believe it was the first, if it wasn't the first, it was one of the first handheld consoles to have dual analog sticks, so you can control the character and move the camera just like you would on a regular controller.
Yeah, I never had the PS Vita. I have the PS TV. That's what I have. It's basically the PS Vita, but cheap.
Yeah, the PS Vita it's a sad part of history, honestly.
It was
not because it's not because it was shit. It's just Sony fucked it.
they advertised it. They didn't advertise it as much, and there wasn't a lot of games out, developers making games for it. So it pretty much died down. Like the hardware was fine, but it just there weren't enough games for it at all. And if they did have games, it wasn't good games because you had a lot of like bad games for the Vita.
It's really sad because I've never owned a Vita, but I've seen gameplay. I've seen games running on the Vita. They look great. It looks so much better than the PSP. And the PSP games even work with the PS Vita. I don't think disc-wise, but you can like digitally download PSP games to your PS Vita and play them on there. So that's like the definitive Sony handheld, and they fucking ruined it. They didn't advertise it, they didn't support it themselves, they weren't pushing games out for it. Of course, at the beginning they did. They had Uncharted, Killzone, Call of Duty, all these games for the PS Vita, and then they just sort of went, fuck this, we give up on this. I don't know why. They spent so much time making this handheld, and then sort of just fucking threw it away. I don't understand.
Yeah, I have a couple of games for the Oh wait, and before I talk about those couple of games, the thing that killed the Vita the most was the SD card that you needed. You needed a Sony SD card, which was so expensive.
Oh, right. They were like Sony made specific SD cards that all would only work in a Vita, and you couldn't buy any other SD card because it wouldn't work in the Vita.
Yeah.
You had to buy Sony branded SD cards, and they jacked the prices up on those things so high. Yeah, fuck them. That's probably another reason why the Vita failed, because people said, fuck you. We're not gonna buy into your fucking branded SD cards. You did that on purpose. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, when I bought the PlayStation TV, I bought it in a bundle. It came with 2 games and a 8 GB memory card. And when I installed the 2 games, it came up to about 4 GB, and I could. After that, plus you had system updates for the TV, so that went onto your SD card as well, and that took up quite a lot of space. And then I downloaded Killzone Mercenary, and I needed to delete those 2 games because the Killzone Mercenary was 3 GB, and then the update for it was 540 megabytes, so I could only have 1 downloadable game, and that's it. But I have 2 physical copies of Vita games, and that's it. I never really thought about buying any more Vita games because it's the size of the updates is ridiculous because of the memory cards. It can't hold jack shit because I thought, buying a physical copy of the game will save space on my memory card. That wasn't the case, because when I went to put in the physical game into the PS TV, I had to install updates for those games, and it went straight to the SD card, the memory card, and that shit took up so much space. So I could only have 1 game, 2 if I'm lucky, downloaded onto my memory card. It's ridiculous. The prices of the SD cards are just stupid, and how they set up everything was just dumb and greedy.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just about the money and the greed and what it shows. Everyone can fall off eventually if they do something wrong. You went from the PSP, which sold 80 million, which wasn't as good as the DS, but certainly still a good number, 80 million. And then you get cocky and say, okay, for the next handheld console, we'll just, charge everyone out the ass for SD cards and make them so that they have to buy our specific ones. and everyone pretty much just said no, we're not doing that. And look what happened. They've only sold what 15 million of the PS Vita compared to 80 million. It's just like the Wii and the Wii U. The Wii sold 100 million, and the Wii U sold 12 million or 13 million. It's you just get cocky. Companies get cocky and greedy, and they don't understand what they're doing. You know, when they're not thinking about their customer fan base or their services, even though they should be, because obviously we're the ones who are buying into that shit. And if you upset us, we're not going to buy it. It seems pretty simple. If you piss people off, just do the same thing you did last time, but make it better. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And another thing with the PS Vita, some games performed terrible. They had Borderlands 2 on the PS Vita, and that shit was awful. It was like a slideshow. It was not even, it couldn't keep a solid 30 FPS. It was probably in the teens, like 15.
Jeez,
It was just awful.
that's bad.
Yeah, and not to say, they didn't create like a whole new engine for it. They just used the same old engine and lowered the graphics, and it played terribly. It was just awful. That's one thing about these most Vita games now. The performance now, because they're still making new Vita games. There's a couple new ones, but the big titles or just the performance is disgusting. Like Borderlands 2, it looked alright and it ran terribly, but Killzone looked beautiful and it ran smooth. And I don't know what's so hard in trying to like optimize the game for the Vita, and that's what like made the games on the Vita like shit, because most of the games don't run at 60 FPS at all. It's just 30 FPS. And most games run like a fucking slideshow.
Yeah, I've heard stories like that where certain games they perform terribly. Like there's certain collections, like the Jack and Daxter collection or the Ratchet and Clank collection, which were on the PS3 as well, and they were also on the PS Vita. Comparing the PS3 versions to the PS Vita version, they ran like ass. The Vita versions ran like shit, and the PS3 versions ran way better. So they it makes me so mad to see something that good that had so much potential that could have been way better just flop. And I know people in this day and age, they fucking love to see that. They love seeing stuff fail. They love seeing games fail. They love seeing consoles fail. They love seeing everything just flop. I don't know why. Why would you not want something to be good? Why would you not want something to come out good?
Yeah, it's stupid. And I think what Nintendo did, they were smart. They looked at the failure of the Vita when making the Switch, and they made the Switch great on the go console. You could also play those games on your TV too. They got Legend of Zelda. Like, that game looks amazing and it runs fine. There's a few frame drops there and there, but it's not that bad. It still runs smooth. They looked at the issue that the Vita had, and they blew it out of the park and just made everything just run so good.
Yeah, even though the Nintendo Switch is marketed as a home console slash handheld hybrid, it's pretty much just a handheld console, and it's the best handheld console right now on the market.
It is, and it's hopefully Sony could, if they ever think of making another handheld console, because they made the PSP was great, and they just fucked up with the Vita so hard. So hopefully, if they're planning on making another handheld console, they do it right.
Yeah, I remember seeing rumors and stuff like that Sony was making a handheld console that was sort of like, the Nintendo Switch. Like it looked like it almost, but I don't know if that's still happening or if that's still a thing. I remember that just being a rumor, but they may make another handheld, or they may say we're never doing handhelds again.
Yeah, I think Sony just went to shit. They have all these subscriptions now. You got PlayStation View, PlayStation Now, and then you have PlayStation Plus. They have a lot of subscription based stuff now. So annoying.
I know.
Just
They're sort of starting to fall off.
yeah.
You can see their decline. It is gonna happen fast, but we'll just have to wait and see. But all right, so we're actually going to cut this podcast in half. This will be the first part of this podcast. This will go out. Obviously, you're watching it today, and then the next part of this podcast will be out on Monday. This is where I'd like to announce our new schedule, new-ish type of schedule. We are going to be doing podcasts every Friday and Monday, and then we'll be trying to do something every Wednesday, whether it's gameplay from me or Neo. Either way, there will be something in between the week or in between each podcast, so that we can, whether it's a two-parter podcast Friday and Monday, or just two separate podcasts on Friday and Monday, we will be uploading on those 2 days. Those will be podcast days. So with that said, have a good night, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time that you're watching this right now. And we'll hope to see you in part 2 of this podcast.